Hi everyone, welcome back to the best recapped movie. Oblivion is a sci-fi action movie and one of Tom Cruise's good movies made in 2013 with an apocalyptic theme. The Earth has been destroyed by a nuclear war, and it is impossible to live there. One of the few remaining officers assigned to the Earth enters an adventure with scavenger aliens and changes his fate. Spoilers ahead. The film begins with Jack's dream in New York, where he looks at a familiar woman from afar and smiles as if he knows her but has never seen her. More than a dream. In the present, which is March 2077, Jack, a communications officer and field repair technician, lives with his partner Victoria in a ship high above the surface of the Earth. 50 years ago, the moon was destroyed by aliens called scavengers. Humans were forced to use nuclear bombs in the war with them, and although won, the use of nuclear weapons made the Earth uninhabitable. They will migrate to Titan and join the rest of the survivors until the end of their mission in 2 weeks. TET is the control center and the largest space station on Saturn, built before the migration to Titan. Now, he and Victoria send reports from water platforms that convert water into energy. They believe that Jack and Victoria are an effective team. Jack has a mission to fight the scavengers still on the ground and is looking to disrupt the operation and destroy the drones. Victoria is the drone support officer and supports Jack and is excited to return to Titan. However, Jack feels that Earth is still his home. Jack goes to his daily mission with his special ship, and by checking the water masts, he confirms that they are working well. Suddenly Victoria informs him that 2 drones are out of order, and she informs Sally, the senior official at TET, about this. Sally warns that the drones must be repaired by nightfall, so Victoria provides Jack with the location of the drones to repair them. Jack encounters storms and lightning on his way, but eventually passes through and moves to the position. At the same time, Victoria reassured Sally that they were still an effective team. He lands and asks Victoria to have his back. Then, while he is working on the drone, someone watches him from inside the cave. Jack repairs the damaged part of the drone with his gum, and while the aliens are seen inside the cave, Victoria warns him that he is in danger, but only a dog is seen behind Jack. Before the drone recovers, Jack does something to make the dog run away. After checking, the drone detects that he is clear and checks the inside of the cave. It sees that it is clear there too, and leaves. Continuing his daily adventure, Jack talks to Victoria about the fearlessness of scavengers during lunch. He also explains that the mills are taking all the water. She says, after they leave, there is nothing but dusts here and enthusiastically emphasizes that only 2 weeks is left until they leave here. Jack picks up a container with grass and flowers, takes his bike from the ship to repair the second drone, and moves towards the position. He approaches the cave under a rock, and after informing Victoria about the situation there, Sally warns her that TET will be offline in 15 minutes and that he should hurry. At the same time, a scavenger looks at Jack from a distance, and Jack decides to enter. On the other hand, Victoria calls TET and requests a support drone for Jack but does not receive an answer. Jack receives a signal from the second drone, but when he goes towards it, he finds himself on the edge of an abyss and tries to use a girder to go towards it. When he reaches the signal, he sees that he is deceived and it is not a drone, and he immediately falls into a trap and is dragged to the ground. Jack temporarily saves himself, sees that the bridge he used earlier falls, and starts shooting at scavengers. Jumping over the cliff, he gets to that side but when he wants to escape, someone shoots the rope and Jack falls from the height. He notices the movements of the scavengers around him and tries to shoot at them when a drone suddenly arrives, destroying them all by identifying the scavengers. Jack's supporting drone recognizes he as clear and leaves, then Jack finds a burning book on the ground and picks it up. When he comes out of there, he sees that his bike is not there, and he has to walk to the ship, but luckily he manages to return home. While taking a shower in the bathroom, he sees that dream again. He realizes that the book he picked is from the ancient Roman period. While reading the book, he tries to keep it a secret from Victoria. Jack gives Victoria the vase he found on the Earth, but she immediately throws it out. Emphasizing the rules, she explains to Jack that it may have contained poison, and asks him not to take such a risk now that they only have 2 weeks left. At night, during dinner, Jack says that they didn't intend to kill me, they just wanted to catch me. After hearing that, Victoria says that they can't have you. She goes out, takes off her clothes, and dives into the pool. Jack joins her and tells her, "I found a place I want to show you." Victoria takes Jack to the pool, and after they kiss, Jack suddenly wakes up. They see a terrible explosion that reflects a lot of light, and Jack assumes that scavengers caused it, so he goes outside to investigate. Victoria asks for a backup drone, and Sally warns her they should not lose another one. It soon becomes clear that one of the water mills has exploded. During his visit, Jack receives a signal from an area and moves towards it. It turns out that the signal is being sent from an abandoned structure. Jack gets out of the ship and enters that place to check. But at the entrance, he sees the telescope he always saw in his dreams. He passes through it, and enters and realizes that the signals are being sent from a repeating transmitter. The question arises for both of them: why do the scavengers send this signal? Finally, Jack shuts down the transmitter. On the way, Jack informs that he may be disconnected, and despite Victoria's warnings about his availability, Jack does what he wants. After flying over a river, he flies to a beautiful place where life seems to still be there. After landing, he enters a wooden hut, and it is obvious that that place is a showcase of things that Jack found in the remains after the nuclear explosions. He plays music on the gramophone, shoots on the basket. He has a fish in the pond and admits he misses that place. He sees that dream again when he falls asleep and wakes up distressed. After that, he sees an object landing after the explosion and immediately flies away. He discusses this with Victoria. Victoria reports this in her contact with Tet, and Sally informs her that the drones have been dispatched and they do not need to do anything. Jack disagrees, and despite Victoria's insistence on not entering, Jack informs her that he has reached the location and says there is no sign of the scavengers. After landing, Jack identifies 5 survivors, all human, and reaches a pod where he sees the girl he saw in his dreams. At the same time, a drone comes and destroys the survivors one by one. Still, Jack doesn't allow it to destroy the girl's pod. After standing in front of that drone, he shoots at it, and finally the drone recognizes he is clear and leaves. While Jack takes the pod to the ship, the scavengers watch it afar. Jack brings the pod home, and after opening it, she suddenly wakes up with the respiratory fluid coming out of her mouth, falls into Jack's arms, and calls him by his name. When she regains consciousness, Victoria introduces them, and she says that her name is Julia.
Julia.
Victoria informs her of the events and her rescue by Jack and says that you are the only survivor. She feels confused and scared when she realizes she has been sleeping in the pod for 60 years. She says that she should go back, but Victoria explains that it is dangerous outside and decides to inject her with a sedative, but Julia prevents her from doing so. Later, at dinner time, Jack informs Julia about all the events about scavengers, the destruction of the moon, and the war on Earth, and says that they are Tet's agents on Earth. Julia also says that she cannot tell about their mission because it is confidential, and she cannot explain anything until she gets the black box. Victoria took Jack's hand, which seemed strange to Julia. She laughed and left the table a little later. Jack tells Victoria that drones kill people and talks about his dreams. Still, she pessimistically says that their crash was caused by scavengers and warns that we don't know her. After that, Jack joins Julia and explains that when Tet goes online, Victoria will report about her, and they will probably send someone to take her. Julia says she must get that black box and asks Jack to take her there, or she says she needs to understand what happened. He and Julia fly to the accident site, and after Victoria finds out, she tells Jack that I can't protect you. Julia searched the area to find the black box, but as soon as she found it, the scavengers attacked Jack and knocked him out. Jack automatically sent the ship home. Victoria gets worried and anxious, and when morning comes, she lies that she lost Jack's signal during the daily patrol and asks Sally to send a drone to that area to support him. Sally agrees, and on the other hand, when Jack regains consciousness, he sees Beach lighting his cigarette and reading him some sentences from the ancient Roman book, the book that Jack took. He asks if he has seen a scavenger up close and says, "Of course not." Then, the building lights turn on, and he sees many scavengers around him. Beach says that we are human, though they use anti-radar technology to avoid being detected by scanners. He explains that drones are made to kill people as he sees, then asks why you risked your life to save that woman, and Jack replies that anyone would have done it. Sykes comes and says we are wasting our time and informs that the drone is tracking him. Beach says Sykes thinks he is an idiot, but he hopes that Jack will prove otherwise. On the other hand, Victoria is happy when she learns that Sally tracked him with a drone using his DNA and continues to inform Sally that they are an effective team. Beach takes Jack to their underground facility, unveiling a NASA-built reactor they acquired with difficulty, and explains that they could bring Julia's ship down with just one fuel cell. They have considered a drone they stole earlier to carry it, but he says that the drone doesn't know them, it knows Jack. He asks Jack to help them end this war, and then Sykes comes forward and gets into an argument with Jack, eventually leading to him shooting Jack. Jack is not killed because his clothes are bulletproof, and Sykes threatens Julia with death. Suddenly a drone arrives. The group takes a defensive position to stop it. The drone is firing at the pillars of the hideout, which detects and kills one of them. Still, Sykes manages to shoot the center of the drone and stops it, so Victoria, realizing this, asks Sally for help again. Beach leads Jack out of the hiding place and he sees his bike when the door opens. He says, "I have been in your radioactive zone before," and by giving him a gun, he asks Jack to search for the truth. Then, Jack speeds until his bike runs out of fuel, and after walking a distance, they reach the same abandoned structure. Jack connected the transmitter he had turned off, and Victoria, knowing Jack's position, sent the ship towards him. Jack sees Julia behind that telescope, asks her who she is, and asks her to tell her mission. Julia says the mission was a research flight to Titan. However, their sensors picked up an alien object 6 weeks before launch, and were reassigned to investigate. That alien object was Tet. They put everyone in the Delta pod and probably woke him and Victoria up early. Then she says she's his wife. And that's where Jack asks her to look into the telescope to see the future. He placing a ring in front of the telescope, and Julia answered, yes. Then, all the dreams that Jack had come true, this time knowing that this was the reality he saw. While Julia is hugging him, the ship arrives, and Victoria sees this scene and breaks down in tears. Jack asks her not to report this to the control center before he arrives. When he returns home, Victoria says to stay away from me and won't open the door, but Jack says they must leave here immediately. Jack explains that Julia is his wife, but it becomes harder and harder for Victoria to understand this until she tells Sally that they are no longer working together, and their team is no longer effective. At the same time, a drone releases itself in the basement, and while Jack is still asking her to leave here with them, the drone rises and shoots at Victoria and kills her. Sally tells Jack that the drones are unreliable, and you shouldn't blame yourself, and asks him to let him and Julia go on a new mission. Still, Jack leaves with Julia on the ship. Sally sends 3 drones to destroy Jack, and after shooting down 2 of them, one of the drones finally collides with the ship and causes it to crash. But luckily, Jack and Julia manage to make an emergency landing and survive. Jack comes out and sees a smoke, and after asking Julia to wait, he goes there and sees a ship from the top of the hill that has come to repair a drone. With his gun camera, he sees someone coming out of the ship, but he cannot recognize his face. He approaches him and says wait, but when he returns, he sees someone similar to himself. He asks Jack to put down his weapon, and after doing this, Julia arrives and is surprised to see 2 people who look alike. Jack uses this opportunity and attacks him. In this tough fight, aimless shooting takes place, which injures Julia, and finally, Jack knocks out his clone, then stops the drone by removing its central core. He quickly runs to Julia, puts her in a nearby shelter, and asks her to endure. Then, he ties the hands of his clone and goes with his ship to the base that seems to be his home. After entering the house, he quickly takes the treatment from the first aid kit, but when he wants to leave, he sees Victoria's clone approaching him. Jack says he has to go back to his mission, but Victoria kisses him. After a few moments, Jack asks her to go to the Earth to show her that beautiful place. Still, she refuses and says it is not allowed because of the rules. Jack realizes that he can't take her with him and decides to go back alone. After that, he quickly reaches Julia and removes the bullet from her body, and they leave while Julia is unconscious. Julia sees herself in a wooden cabin by the lake when she wakes up. She puts on her jacket, plays Jack's favorite music, and after she goes to him, she tells him that you like this song very much, but Jack says, I'm not him, but as far as I remember, I loved you. She tells him about the promise he always made that Jack was supposed to build her a house by the lake and tells him that they are all his real memories. Then she kisses Jack. The next morning, they decide to go help Beach and his group and then come back here. When they reach their hideout, Sykes pulls his gun on them, and after Beach arrives, Jack says he's back to prove him wrong. Sally again discovers his location through Jack's DNA and sends 3 drones to the hideout. On the other hand, Jack is programming the drone, and Beach honestly informs him about the events. Beach says that it was Tet who invaded Earth with an army of thousands of people who all looked like him, had their memories erased, and were programmed to kill human. Jack activates the drone, and Beach says he'd like to see Sally's face when it explodes, then tells Jack, welcome back, Commander.
Welcome back, Commander.
Seeing the people staring at him, Jack boldly prepares the group to face them while the drones move quickly toward the hideout. The drones come in, and there is a heavy firefight. Beach manages to shoot down one of the drones. On the other hand, Julia and the rest of the people are chased by another drone after escaping, but before they are killed by it, Sykes shoots it from behind into the central system. It will be overthrown. The last drone is also shot by Jack, and after the malfunction in the drone system, it explodes fatally, and Jack manages to save himself by jumping from a height. When he regains consciousness, Sykes grabs his hand, and Julia hugs him. Then Beach, who is seriously injured, asks Jack to send the nuclear drone to Tet, but Jack says that it is lost, yet assures him that he can do it himself. Since she might kill Jack, Julia asks him to take her with him because she had asked them this earlier. Jack and Julia look at the painting on the wall, and Julia says it reminds her of home. After they kiss, Julia enters the pod, hoping that Jack will take her to Tet. Jack takes the pod into his ship and sets the course on Tet, and along the way, he plays the recorded sound from the black box and remembers everything. He was the commander of the ship, and Sally was the real control agent of NASA controlling them. Victoria was the co-pilot, and the rest of the group, including Julia, fell into Delta sleep. Jack approaches Tet and tells Sally that he brought the survivor, and Sally lets him in. At the same time, he remembers the past when approaching Tet. Jack decides to eject the hibernation module, and then he and Victoria enter Tet. In the present, he enters, and Sally sends the drones towards Jack, but Jack convinces her to let him get closer. On the way, Jack sees a lot of clones of himself and Victoria and lands in Tet with Sally's welcome. Julia's pod opens, but Jack says it's not her. At the same time, Julia wakes up in a wooden cabin by the lake, and it turns out that Beach has replaced her. While Sally sends the drones toward the survivors and Julia opens the painting that Jack left for her, Beach and Jack activate the plutonium core and Tet is destroyed by pressing the button. The drone stops and overthrown, and with the destruction of Tet, Julia is sure that he is also killed and cries. 3 years later, Julia is living at home with her daughter when the rest of the survivors suddenly appear in the lake, along with 52 Jack, the same clone that Jack controls in the desert. Jack is now home to his wife and child at the end of the movie. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel.